This episode is brought to you by Nordstrom. Summer's almost out and fall's calling. Luckily, Nordstrom has everything you need for the season ahead, all under $100. Discover new arrivals from your favorite brands like Mango, Princess Polly, Wave, Free People, BDG, and more. Whether you're planning a last-minute getaway, heading back to class, or refreshing your office looks, you'll find the latest trends and beauty must-haves without breaking your budget. It's easy, too, with free shipping, free returns, and in-store order pickup. Shop today, in stores, and at Nordstrom.com. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Espolón Tequila. Slow, sticky, snoozy. They call these the dog days of summer. But Espolón? They don't do boring. Welcome to the Marg Days. Espolón Tequila. 100% blue Weber agave, born to shake up your summer. Just add lime, agave, and a little attitude. Visit espolontequila.com. Espolón Tequila, 40% alcohol, volume 80 proof. Copyright 2025 Campari America, New York, New York. Drink responsibly.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?
Greetings, everybody. We're almost there, Sam. Not too long now before everything starts in earnest. And here we are, our final preseason pod this time around. Feels like year 9 was a much more smooth and mercifully a bit shorter compared to other years. I just can't wait to get going, but I don't know. It feels like it was quite short, which is always really nice and sweet. Joined, of course, as always, by Sam. All good, mate? Looking forward to it?
Yeah, I'm really excited now. It feels like it's come around very quickly. Obviously helped by the slightly shorter preseason for FPL anyway. And we had a bit of Club World Cup to enjoy over the summer too. And of course, I support a championship club. So I got a nice little boost last Saturday, watching all the championship football. And of course, a last minute winner with a Hollywood finish was always on the cards. And I did enjoy that quite a lot. So yeah, I'm right up for it. I'm in football mood now. It all feels like ready to go. I just want to wait for FPL to disappoint me once more. So yeah, buzzing at the moment and currently ranked number 1. So that will be the last time we say that this year, won't it? As always, we are Who Got the Assist. On today's pod, we'll start with a quick update on news and views, a few bits to cover off after a weekend of final friendlies. Obviously, we had the Community Shield as well, and generally how they hindered us in our final decision making. A word on final things we're waiting for, which could change things a little bit further. Obviously, transfer window is very much open, and we'll get all the press conferences in the next couple of days as well, which will be crucial. We'll also be talking through the genetic makeup of WGTA 25-26. We've changed a few things around. I think you'll enjoy all of them, hopefully. Let us know. But we'll be briefly introducing a few of those new features for the season and the way that we're going to format the pod. Nothing too crazy. You're not going to think it's a completely new show or anything. But we thought this would be a good opportunity to tell you all about it, including a couple of sections that we'll go into later on, of course, but form versus fixtures will be a new sort of feature section. Year-long bold claims are going to stay. We're going to get rid of the week-to-week bold claims to be replaced by something else that we're very excited by that we'll introduce you to later on in the show. And finally, those nearly final drafts. We're not quite there yet, but I think we're both getting pretty close to be unveiled towards the end of the show. And of course, we will both be scrutinizing and criticizing each other's drafts for a good little while towards the end of the pod. So tune in for that. That should be good fun. We are pre-recording on Tuesday, the 12th of August. We've got 3 days, is it now, until the start of the Premier League season. Liverpool kicking us off on Friday night. It's going to be good fun. But are we ready?
Let's find out, shall we? So, yeah, first off, 3 days to go. I guess like the last weekend was quite a big one, really, in terms of the FPL community and in the real football community as well. Real football FPL community, lol. Just because we saw the community shield, which led to all manner of knees jerking all over the place. So more knees jerking on Twitter than I'm not going to say the next bit. And also there were loads of final friendlies, including a final friendly for Man City, which was their first friendly. So yeah, lots of stuff coming out of those. Community Shield probably a good place to start. Liverpool defensive back Graven Birch, who became a daddy. Andy Martin completely missed that one, didn't he? God. And he's missing game week 1 as well. Vert's looking very lively. Going to be a very ex-lively character. And I thought, Ismail Assar really caught my eye in that game.
Yeah.
Certainly a few things I think to take from that one, weren't there?
Yeah, I was going to say Sarr as well. I thought he was very good, and obviously the data last season was promising. I think we both had him at certain times. I had him for quite a while last season, and he did underperform his XG at times. But he is a hell of a player. There is a player there behind the scenes, and I think he should take another step up this season. So yeah, a player that I'm very interested in. He's in my thinking. Munoz as well was still getting forward despite the fact it was against Liverpool. Mateta starting off really well and importantly taking the penalty. And again, very confidently taking the penalty. Eze possibly off in the next week or so. Tottenham and Arsenal both circling. I think his release clause cancels out on Friday. So we should have news fairly soon on that. And either way, I think Mateta's probably going to be the one that just steps up and takes penalties now. So that probably puts him right near the top of the queue for the 7.5 million forwards. So yeah, lots learned from that fixture. It was a great game as well. I really enjoyed it. After about 4 minutes, I thought, well, Liverpool are just never going to lose the season. They just looked ridiculously fluid. But then Palace fought back in it. It was actually a really tightly contested game. The second half, it was a bit stodgy at times. But yeah, it did get me very excited for the Premier League kicking off. Like, you can watch all the preseason friendlies you like, but when you have something that matters at least a little bit on the line, the teams really do take a step up. And that's something to remember when we get to game week 1. The friendlies, it's great to see expected minutes. It's great to see formations and new systems, all of that. But the players are just so much more motivated and the managers are really up for it. Everything just goes up a few notches when competitive football starts. So don't disregard that. Preseason is fun to watch, but it's not the real deal.
Yeah, 100% agreed. The only other thing to mention, touching Community Shield, was the stop press today. Romano, I think, said that the Gay Heath Liverpool deal could well be on.
Yeah.
See where that goes. As Sam said earlier, we're recording on Tuesday, so it may happen, may not. Maybe after the game 1 deadline, who knows? On all those friendlies, there's a lot to rattle through. Reinders off the bench to brace against the Palermo, the mighty Palermo.
10-man mighty Palermo.
Means a must, Sam, for this season. Speaking of must for the season, João Pedro can't stop doing the goal stuff that he always does. More on that later. Cole Will was injured subsequent to last week's recording, so we recorded on the Tuesday. I think he got injured on the Wednesday night. Chalobah off injured after, but he apparently that was just due to heat exhaustion or something, so he should be back.
He's okay. Yeah.
Rogers wasn't in the squad on the weekend for either of Villa's friendlies, but there's a chance he'll be okay this weekend. I think there's a good chance. Kelleher is being monitored for a knock. More of that in a minute. De Kuyper did a goal from the edge of the box, which looked quite nice. So maybe one to keep an eye on. Dubravka was signed. Moving on to transfers, but wasn't in the Burnley squad. Both Rice and Hladecki, the other lad. I think it's Hladecki or Hladecki.
Hladecki, I think, but yeah, whatever.
By a Leverkusen goalkeeper, wasn't he? Both played a half each. Dubravka apparently not match fit, and also Howell said pre-departure that he had an injury. A few other transfers in. Sesko 7.5, which I think is actually a really intriguing price for him. I'm not going to start with him, but interesting one. It seems for United fans wondering why he's 7.5 versus Gyökeres being 9.0. It might be due to the fact that United finished where they did last year. I don't know. KDH, Dewsbury Hall, signed for Everton, as did Jack Grealish today, which is interesting ones to keep an eye on as well. quite a lot has happened, Sam. Quite a lot of things I think we'll touch on later on. I don't think we need to go into every single one of those one by one. The only one I do want to get your thoughts on is the Sesko price, just because obviously that's a new one. And I think that could be one which could play a role later on in the season, especially when we get on to something later on in this pod.
Yeah, so I think it's a competitive price. It's not something I'm interested in from the start. I don't think many will be, because he hasn't been training with them for long. He hasn't really been featuring obviously in preseason for them. So I think it will take a few weeks. And when you've got Arsenal in game week 1, you want to go with what you know. There are certain players at Man United that I would be more confident in to begin with. I think it is a very good price for him, and I think at times he will come into a lot of people's sides. But there are a lot of good players in FPL, and especially at 7.5 in the forward line. So I don't think you need to be ripping up your drafts to get him just yet. It's a wait and see for me, and you can hop on him when the fixtures turn good and he starts getting 80, 90 minutes a match, I think.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of him last year in the Bundesliga when he was in my Bundesliga team, and he's very raw. Just because of my, I'm sorry, but my kind of slight dislike of Man United, which may have come through every now and again. I do hope he goes the way of Højlund, but we'll need to see. I think that he's definitely a player in there, that's for sure. It's just he was a little bit, I don't know, there were definitely times last year when he didn't quite look as good as he didn't quite kind of have the end products that matched his obvious ability, put it that way.
There is a player there, though.
Yeah, I agree. And if it does kind of start to develop and really kind of roll forward, then yeah, certainly I'm very interested. Going forward, then we've got the Super Cup tomorrow. From time of recording, one to watch out for injuries and things like that, and also some clues maybe for what might happen with Burnley. So if like a Van der Ven maybe plays 100, I don't know if they go straight to penalties or not. If he plays the full 90/100 and whatever it is, maybe it'll be the Danso gets a run out versus Burnley if you're planning him in your team, or at least it'll make me kind of think, I don't know. And press conferences. I'm, for example, in Bench Boost, fishing for any 4.0 goalkeeper news. So if this Kelleher knock is actually going to roll him out for the first week, then that's perfect for me, because Valdemarson is a really obvious buy, just for 1 week. I don't really care who he is. There he is, and I've saved 0.5, and I might be able to do something else with it. We maybe get a leak as well on Friday about Liverpool lineup, but I suspect it's going to be not as contentious as it might otherwise have been. So if Conor Bradley, for example, who we've learned since the Price pod actually does have an injury, if he was still around, maybe we're thinking, is Frimpong going to start or not? But I don't really see there being too much in that lineup that we can be worried about. And just on lineups, Emma at Jump the Wave on X and at Emma1 on Blue Sky was in touch with me. She runs the lineup prediction service every year, working very hard on behalf of the community. And she's asked us to give a shout out to any Spurs or City fans who want to take part in the lineup predictions, particularly to get in touch with her, because it really helps. It's one of those things that at the start of it, at kind of the Friday every week, she publishes, with the help of all of these people, graphs on her timeline, which basically give a prediction percentage of all the predictors to give you an idea of which players everybody is kind of a collective nexus of masterminds thinks is likely to start.
It's really good. It's absolutely essential. I check out every single week. So yeah, could not rate that higher. Very, very good. Get involved if you can.
Perfect. Yeah. So that's Jump the Wave on X or Emma1 on Blue Sky. So yeah, that's all that stuff. Smash through that just because we want to spend a lot of time on the drafts today. But there are a couple of things to go into just very quickly, just for the year ahead. So if you're new to the pod, last year and the year before, I think we had quite a defined way of going through the pod the show every week. This time we're slightly changing things around. So we had a pizza and a few beers in off season, and we came up with a few very good ideas at the time that we've since forgotten what they actually were. And you messaged me earlier on, so just to clarify exactly what this was. Yeah. But in my mind, these were very good ideas, and I think they're just a nice way of sort of looking at things. So the first thing is that what Sam mentioned earlier on in terms of form versus fixture. So the idea of this is that each week, in terms of how we look at everything that's going on in the FPL world, Sam, we're not doing that knee-jerk, the best ins and outs anymore. The kind of the market forces kind of stuff from way back when on the pod, sorry, Nick, is now going to be slightly reintegrated into this. And it's just the idea of looking at kind of players who are in form versus the fixture runs coming up and how we assess potential moves in our squads.
Yeah, pretty much. So obviously it's kind of a grass versus analytics kind of section for the pod, which we've rebranded slightly to form versus fixtures, basically one half of it is looking back. That's the form. One half of it is projecting or looking forwards, which is the fixtures. So we're trying to interpret the data that we've seen in the past and analyze that and try and figure out where the next trends are coming from. So I think there are there's a balance to be struck between getting form versus fixtures right, but what we're going to try and do with this is tackle both sides of the argument and come to a reasoned conclusion in the middle somewhere. There will be weeks where the form pick, despite the fixtures, is still the best player to be going for, or the best collective of players to be going for. And then there's going to be the other side of it where actually we're seeing 2 or 3 teams with a big fixture swing coming. There's an opportunity here that no one else is really spotting. So that's the way that we're trying to play this. But obviously, it's going to also take on a sort of life of its own throughout the season, where we're talking a little bit from the grass versus analytics side of it as well, I assume.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it won't replace having one thing we do features on, as usual, on WGTA for long-term listeners, but we'll definitely be using this format just as a structure for what we do. And how we present kind of the main pod topic each week, because we'll keep doing that. It's just like a lens through which we will try to kind of make sure that we can bring that to you in a way which is kind of useful and concise, hopefully. We say that with be like, oh, it's a short one this week. We talk about that for a little bit, and kind of 45 minutes later, oh crap, we better move on to best captains, which of course is going to stay. Right, next thing is season-long bold claims. Oh, the graphic has not worked there. Apologies. Weekly bold claims. We've decided to replace that with something else, which we'll see in a minute. But we're going to keep the long-term ones just because they're quite fun to keep an eye on over the course of the season.
Yeah.
I don't think we're linking them to the game that we've come up with, but I think that these are kind of just some fun little kind of really bold. So we can't get away with something like Salah to be the top scorer or Saka to get the most assists. It's not.
Oh, those are my
like
2 bold claims ruined.
Oh, mate. Oh, dear. They're long-term bold claims. Last year, I won 1-0, just because I predicted a bold manager to be sacked first, which was probably, I don't know, it's kind of a medium claim rather than a bold one. I'd say. I think I got away with that one.
Lemon and herb.
No, I don't think it's lemon and herb. I think it was definitely medium. It was definitely medium. I'm going to tell myself that. It was a Joe Frazee. Okay. So season on bold claims then, Sam. You've looked into your crystal ball for the year ahead. Should we do one by one? So you give or all 3. What do you reckon?
Let's do one by one. So do you want me to start off?
Mystic Sam looking in his crystal ball. What do you see?
I think this is a good one. Again, feel free to disagree, but I think Fernandes breaks his all-time point scoring record this season of 244 points. I was going to say 250, and then I checked his record, and I was like, okay, I'll just say he breaks his record because it's basically one and the same. I think, despite the slight positional change, I think people are overplaying that. I don't think that's going to impact his actual return rate that much. Plus the defensive contributions, plus playing with better players in front of him who actually might finish the chances, the many chances that he creates for them. I think he's onto a bit of a scorcher this season. Plus, they don't have to worry about European football. They won't have tired legs going into the back end of the season. I just think there's so much going for him this year. I'm very hot on him. 244 points. He's coming to get that. And that is my first bold claim.
Okay. I think I'm going to switch it around from what's on the YouTube, just because I've got a bold claim which sort of tacks onto that. But sure. I get it. I'm there for it. I'm there for the Man United signing lots of soloists who don't work together in a super group. Cunha, Bumo,
the Avengers,
maybe Sesko and Fernandes, all noted soloists. I'm there for it not working for them. But if it does, it's going to be something amazing to behold. And as you say, I think Fernandes will be the fulcrum of creativity behind that. So completely get that. And I agree that him being in centre midfield is just notional, really, isn't it? I mean, he just goes wherever he wants, frankly, on the field. And the point about there being no European competition, I think, is going to have a real impact on FPL. See this every year with teams that in the past. We've seen Chelsea, Arsenal hitting the zeitgeist big time because there has been no European competition to worry about, much more predictable, and those minutes essentially are just a lot more bankable for their big stars. So linked to that point with Fernandes, one of my bold claims is that triple Man United will be in the FPL template for at least 5 weeks this season. We're going to have to keep an eye on that because
consecutive weeks.
consecutive weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what makes it bold, because otherwise I can just be like, oh, there was this week, there was that week where the free hits were quite big that week. I don't think so. There's got to be a solid period of time where we can say, okay, Man United's triple is in the template. I think it's definitely doable. So if you see a Fernandez, you see a Sesko, you see a Dorgu at 4.5 who's getting into ridiculous positions, so easy to do.
Yeah, I was going to say it's going to be difficult to picture a template 3 that includes more than one midfielder there, because there are just so many good midfielders. So at best, it would be like a Bruno alongside either an Mbeumo or a Cunha. And then you're probably not tripling up on attack. So I think Dorgu would have to be one of that 3 to make it a template, because the other defenders just don't offer enough. So yeah, I think that's a bold claim. I like it. It's a good one. I can see it happening, but I think it's just bold enough that that is absolutely fine. If I had to predict which 3, I would probably go Sesko, Bruno, Dorgu, but maybe Cunha instead of Sesko.
I'm eyeing up game weeks between game week 9 after Liverpool game up until game week 21. They don't play any team in last season's top 4. I think they played Newcastle actually in game week 18, but it was like a really long, unblemished run. I can see people wildcarding into Free United if they've started the season well. Simple as that.
Yeah. On that note as well, because they don't have European football to worry about, they're going to be that little bit fresher during that period, and they might not need to rotate as much either. So that might be another little feather in the cap of that bold claim. You might get away with it there.
Perfect. All right. So on to a couple of specific sort of player points. My first one, Dom Solanke, the top scoring FPL forward. I told you this, I think, when we met up, this going to be one of my bold claims this year.
You did,
It is a bold claim. I'm not saying that I'm going to be buying Solanke and triple captaining him straight away, but I do think that under Thomas Frank, he's going to improve. I think the raw ingredients are all there with him, and we're hoping that Thomas Frank can turn Dom Solanke into Ivan Toney, except on steroids. I'm not going to be putting a bet against that, though. What do you think?
Oh dear. No, I really like that one. Dom Solanke, I think, is due to have a very good season. The underlying data always looked pretty decent, and I think under the right manager in the right system, he can get up another few gears. I think he can go up another few levels. So the only thing that I could see going against that is the fact that they've got to deal with Champions League football, and they don't really. I mean, Richarlison exists, but is he really going to be a serious factor? Are they just going to have to run Solanke into the ground? I'm not sure. So that would be the only thing competing with it. Also, there are just a ton of strikers that Watkins, Gyökeres now, Haaland, are all going to have something to say about that. But I think he'll be right up there. I think he's due to have a very good season, but it's undoubtedly a bold claim. On that note, I'll move on to my forward bold claim for the season. Bit of an analytics darling. I haven't really watched much of him myself, to be honest. So I am just using the wisdom of the football analytic crowd, the tacticos out there, in saying that Tierno Barry at Everton is going to become the it thing, the striker at a budget price that we're all going to want to own at some point this season. He's 6 million. It looks likely that he's going to overtake Beto at some point. I don't know if that will be from the start, but I think it will happen at some point this season. And at 6 million, that's a very accessible price. It's a very a neighborly kind of price to bring in a lot of other heavy hitters. And he's got a lot of very good creative assets around him now. He's got Ndiaye, he's got McNeil, he's got Alcaraz, he's got Grealish just coming in, Dewsbury Hall. So the Everton forward line is probably going to get better service than it did last season. I've just got a sneaky feeling that if all of those factors come together, Tierno Barry is going to become a template pick. And the way I've defined that is 30% plus, because I think if I went any higher than that, it would be trying to account for dead teams. And so put whatever number you want on that to be template. But yeah, well, in the same way that you've done template Man United.
I think he's going to be. I think you pronounce it Thierry Henry, Tieno Bori.
Okay.
Going to be. I'm literally making that up. I'm wearing an Arsenal kit right now. It just came to my mind immediately. But usually you don't. It's a Frenchman called Barry. I mean, he's going to call him Bori or something, aren't you? And yeah, no, interesting one. But that's the point of bold claims, isn't it?
It is.
To be fair. Okay, speaking of bold claims, third one. This is the year that Salah. I predicted this last year, so it didn't work out. But this year, Salah scores less than 150 points.
Come on.
If that happens, then I am going to be carried through the streets of social media as an absolute genius. But it's one of those that it's bold for a reason, Sam. The torch will pass the verts. There's going to be things that are going to age will catch up with Salah. It could well happen. Am I going to back that by starting without him in my FPL team? No. But I do think that the year's going to come, and it could happen this year. Who knows? Maybe one preseason game where he didn't do very much. Maybe that's a bellwether for the season to come.
Maybe. I think that, I will give you a few extra points if that one comes true. 150 is low. That's effectively saying you expect Elliot Anderson to beat Salah this year for points, as far as I'm concerned. So, several defenders as well. Several DEFCON defenders beat Salah this year is effectively the bold claim.
If I'd have said that he scores less than 200 points this year, I don't think I'd have got enough. That's a mild claim, isn't it? So.
How many seasons has Salah actually done less than 200 points in fairness?
Never.
Exactly. So I agree that it is coming at some point. It's bold for a reason. That's exactly what you said. So I don't want to besmirch it or criticize it too much, because it will happen one of these seasons. Just don't know if this is the season. Wow, that is incredible. My final one is nowhere near as exciting or controversial as that, but I am going for almost the complete opposite end of the spectrum. You've gone for the most expensive asset in the game. I've gone for the cheapest asset in the game, Esteve at Burnley, to get over 50 DEFCON points. So that's 25 times he needs to hit the DEFCON barrier. I think they're going to be backs against the wall. We know defenders need clearances to hit the DEFCON. I think he's going to be a clearance monster. I've tracked the data from the Championship. Even in a side that had a lot more of the ball, he still cleared the ball quite a lot. So I think this season he is going to hit 50 extra points on top of what you'd normally expect him to be getting in a Premier League season, therefore making him a pretty decent bench option. So yeah, it's not as exciting as Salah's, but the reason I went for 50 is because no player would have hit 50 last season. So it would have to be effectively a record for DEFCON points. So that's where I'm going on that one.
Good old French Steve. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Electric Steve, as some people are calling him.
So Zophar is calling him that. Yeah, absolutely fine. I think my autocorrect is already calling him Steve. Really like that. And yeah, he's a player that I'm probably going to be including. Okay, and on to the second thing. So this season long, that's it. We're locked in now, and we'll check in on them as and
Put
when
them in the vault
throughout the course of the season, put them in the time capsule and reopen them on Game Week 38 in May. The next thing replaces the bold claims weekly, and it is the 1 week punt. So Sam, how's this going to work?
Right. So the idea behind the 1 week punt is that last season our bold claims got maybe a little bit stale week to week. It got a bit repetitive. So to completely reverse that trend, we are only now basically we're picking one perfect player for each game week. But once we've picked them once, we can never pick them again. So let's say I pick Salah game week 1. I can't pick him for the next 37 game weeks. The way that we're going to work this is we're going to tally up the actual points that those players get, and it becomes a running scoreboard. So it's not like I get 1 point if Salah wins and you pick Palmer and he gets less points. If Salah gets 10 points, Palmer gets 8, I'm now 10-8 up. And throughout the season, that's the way it will work. We can only use each player once, not with the exception, but we can only use each player once. And then we've also got jokers. Otherwise, maybe I guess triple captains in a way, where we'll get double points from whichever player we pick. So we get those twice across the season. It's effectively a chip for us. And across the season, we just pick which week we want to hit that Joker card. So this week, to start off, we both picked, I would say pretty interesting. I thought at least one of us would go with one of the big dogs to get off to a good start, but we've both gone a little bit different, a little bit clever. I've gone with Pedro Porro. I think it is a standout good fixture at home to Burnley. I think Burnley are very unlikely or pretty unlikely to score. And Porro is on set pieces whilst Maddison's out and getting forward a lot. Good underlying expected data. So yeah, I like Porro at home. And I don't think I'm going to ever really want to use him again later on in the season. So I think it's a good opportunity to leverage him for one game week and get it out of the way.
Okay, fair enough. I was considering like a Brennan Johnson or something, but because we're so far out, we're kind of a little bit of a far out when we're recording before the Super Cup. I just thought I couldn't really quite go there, so instead I'm going to do something you should never do. I'm going full Krug. Such on Planet FPL said that he's like a new sign-in and been very fit in pre-season, and yeah, very very good. Looking very good. I think he'll play 60, 70 minutes because he is 33. The spring chicken, the West Ham attack. If Antonio and Wilson, who's newly signed, were both still there. But yeah, I think that he's in with a good chance of doing something against Sunderland, especially with production line now in place with Mr. Doof on the left-hand side, who I really like. So yeah, never go full Krug, apart from in this, and maybe in your FPL teams, we'll find out in a minute.
And also, if you're in the live chat as well, feel free to throw your suggestions in as well and keep track at home and work those out throughout the season. See if you're beating us too. Feel free. If you're obviously listening to the pod, do the same. We'll take it on Scout's honor that you're playing the game correctly. But yeah, keep us posted on how you're doing with this one. I think it should be fun throughout the season.
Nice one. All right, there we go. So I think it's time to look at drafts, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going across. We're doing it. Yeah. Okay.
I think so.
Right. I have not seen your draft. Are you first? Yes, you're first. Right. So I'm going to sit back and take this in whilst you explain it because I haven't seen this yet. And apparently it's quite different. So I need to take this in.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, we podded literally 7 days ago. We recorded, I think we actually put it out on the Thursday. Since then, there have been 10 changes. There are 5 players still in place. They are Sells, Porro, Salah, Palmer, and Watkins. And those are pretty much the 5 that I've just kind of had in place for an awful lot of the preseason. But there are a few changes that have been done. I'm just going to kind of walk through them kind of person by person. So Sells in goal, a second goalkeeper is Verbruggen. I've got bench boost active. It was Darlow this on Thursday. Unfortunately, dream has died, as has the Dubravka dream, as mentioned. I don't think that there's going to be a 4.0 unless Andrew says Valdemarson is going to play because Kelleher can't make it. I don't know if he's going to be. I'm hoping he'll be naive enough, basically, Sam, to tell the truth.
Yeah.
He will. I'm loath to pay the 4.5 for the goalkeeper. That could be any of the 4.5 goalkeepers. I've just got Verbruggen in basically at the moment. But we shall see. I mean, yeah, it might be Areola. It could be whoever. But I've got to pay the extra 0.5, which I don't really like doing. But hey, there we go. Got Murillo in at the moment. So I got rid of, I had Neco Williams the other week. Neco, I don't know whether I was kind of spooked by the links with Leif Davis and spooked by the links with Shimikas, but it also, more I thought about it, it just felt like Neco was a bit of a rotator option, whereas his replacement in Murillo is one I can just play every week in reasonable expectations of DEFCONs. He got more DEFCONs per 90 than Tarkowski did last year, for example. So it means I can just set and forget him. I'm pretty happy with that. Porro in place. Anderson is now in instead of Wan-Bissaka. So I see Anderson as being a kind of a dependable player who should be favoured by DEFCON. I realised, even though I don't really care for defensive rotation, that I wouldn't be fielding Wan-Bissaka at any point over the first 4 game weeks. That's all I care about. In fact, all I really care about is up to the international break. I don't really think about anything else after that because things change so much. But over the first 3, I wouldn't be playing him. Anderson is quite good for game week 4. They've got Leeds at home if we do get to that point and I need him. And if I did kind of go back to West Ham, I'd punt Diouf anyway. But yeah, Anderson just felt like a nice 90-minute man, especially because I tend to go 3-5-2. Really. Colwell has gone. Obviously, he's been replaced by Tosin, so definitely a risk. And this is probably one you're going to get hot flushes about, Sam. But it fits the rotation for me a little bit. Again, don't really care too much, but over the first 3 should cover it. I spoke to Gary Mantle, Planet FPL Chelsea correspondent, who said he'd be extremely surprised if it's not Tosin and Chalobah for the first few games, which is what I really care about. I don't plan for beyond 4 weeks' time, as I've mentioned. Fafana's probably not a worry. And Gary added that actually Ampong is more of a Chalobah than Tosin in profile. So yeah, a bit risky, but I can't touch Consta, Sam. I just can't bring myself to do it. And I think that the opportunity of Tosin for the first 3 weeks puts him as being the best 4.5 for a little while if you can accept the risk. And it might be that I put him up to Frimpong or Verge in game week 4 for Burnley. Plus, it might be Gahey by that point, so who knows? And the final defender is your man Steve Estev. I just, as you said, just think that he's got some positives in terms of defcons, and he did very well boxing clearances in Championship. You've already given voice to that. And in game week 1 against Spurs, he might get those, or should get those. I'm aiming for those 3 points, and he's also playing ball in game week 2 at home to Sunderland when Porro's away to City. So come that. Midfield, Salah, Palmer both stay. I did have Wilson last week, Harry Wilson, who I still think is quite a good pick, but he's gone for Andefcon or Anderson. Saw great work. I think you alerted me to it by FPL Chewy, which showed he'd been hitting his defcons basically pretty constantly, and he seems like an obvious pickup, really at that price. Just see where it goes, really. So that means I'm triple Forest. I did have Baleba last week. Now I've got KDH, the new Magic Bean. I'm not sure how he'll fare, but I think he'll play a role at that price, and I think that's absolutely fine, really, in terms of minutes and also kind of vague attackingness. But the big change, really, is that I've got Verts. So if you were kind of thinking when you were listening to it, hang on, he was saying he was going to have Van Dijk the whole time. I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced by Liverpool's defence yet, quite yet, especially without Gravenberch in game week 1, and then Newcastle and Arsenal in 2 and 3. And last week, Sam, after having our chat, as I said to you when we were chatting the other day, I was a little bit spooked by the gap between my kind of 6.5 or my kind of and Palmer. So I thought I really need to look into a player in that gap. I've considered Marmoush as well, but I'm currently siding with Verts just because I'm without Liverpool defender. One thing should have his minutes to Liverpool. I'm going to back a bit of a hunch on him, basically, on watching in the Bundesliga for a year. That'd be good enough to go and do the business for me FPL-wise. But at that price, he's also Bruno-able if I need to do post-game week 1. It could be Marmoush still, or Bruno if I find 0.5. So if Valdemarsten's a goer, and I can get rid of the Bruggen, I might consider taking up to Bruno. But yeah, that's that. Full Krug is now in my team. Just kind of needed the 0.5 from Strand Larson. Watkins is still around, and João Pedro is in. I've relented a bit on him, I think, Sam. Sorry to say. I know you're going to hate it. I think with him, is the gamification side of it came to mind with me. To me, I think it's the second most owned player at the moment. I haven't got any strong convictions around the alternatives. He's got a high EO, so I don't want that train to go without me if he starts well. And there's loads of different ways that I can kind of go with that. But I think starting with him is slightly safer if I don't have a strong feeling about others at that price bracket. So Wood, for example, would have a strong feeling about him potentially, but also I think the case for Anderson or Andefcon, Murillo and Sells is probably a little bit stronger. So yeah, that's Sells and Verbruggen in goal, Murillo, Pedro Porro, Tosin, Anderson and Stev at the back, KDH, Palmer, Salah, Verts and Anderson, and up front, full crew, João Pedro and Watkins, and that's a bench boost. And that's the way I'm looking at it.
Cool.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Right. Okay. So how do you want to do this? Do you want me to just like start asking questions on the draft to like?
Yeah, should we? I think we should.
It?
I think we should, just because I think we'll do yours kind of seconds.
Yeah.
Just because otherwise, I think if I do all of mine, then you do all of yours, people are going to just forget what the hell I was saying.
Yeah, it's all going to get jumbled up. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So, Tosin, I think is risky. I know you say. Okay, so my first question will be: you mentioned you're not planning beyond 4 game weeks. My question to that would be why? Because are you looking at wildcarding after 4 game weeks, or are you're just not bothered? Whatever happens, and I'll just use whatever transfers I need to after 4.
After international, basically all I want to do is get up to international break game week 3 with what we know now, and then. Because there'll be so much more that we find out, so many kind of different players will come onto the zeitgeist, hot new things will be everywhere, and the general mania that descends over FPL all I'm really interested in, I've done this on Solio and done this on FPL Review as well, is look at the first 3 weeks. Like, I just think that beyond that point, like, the whole idea of decay rate or that sort of thing, there are just so many things I could possibly do after that. Like, if I ramp up to 3 free transfers or 2 free transfers or whatever it is. I think it's 3 free transfers in game week after game week 3. But I just want to get to international break really with this kind of team. The idea is that sustainable wild card sort of idea, the sustainable bench boost sort of idea. And that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. I just don't see any merit really in planning beyond that right now, because there's so many things I'm not particularly sure about, how DEFCONs are going to kind of shape the game. And there are 5 players that I really like. The rest of them I've settled on, but I don't absolutely kind of love them. I think they're absolutely nailed. There are loads of kind of areas where I've got a lot of doubt, and I think that I'm just going to take it for the first 3 weeks and then see what happens after that, and then start to make kind of further plans after that and kind of chunk it up a little bit, because I don't see any merit in having a long-term plan, because stuff changes all the time in FPL, especially after game week 1. Like, the start of the season is such a frenzy. I just don't see the point, frankly.
Yeah. Okay. I would my not argument, but my critique would be I see a lot of book transfers in this team. So I think Tosin's gone after 4 or 5 game weeks, regardless, because they're looking at signing a left-sided centre back that is left-footed. So his minutes will become a risk. Porro's going to go pretty quickly as well. I think the Munoz train or Lacroix or whoever is probably going to kick off from game week 2. And I think if you reverse the fixtures for Porro, and this is not a critique of you necessarily, it's more of an observation of the community at large right now. Everyone seems to be very high on Porro, but I think if you mix those fixtures up a little bit, everyone bins him immediately, because as good as the data is, we don't know how good Spurs are going to be going forward. It's a great first game week, but they're only going to play Burnley at home once this season, and it's out the way straight away. After that, you've got objectively harder games. So I'd be a little bit worried about that. You won't need to sell him immediately because you can bench him, but do you really want to be benching a 5.5 million defender? Then double Nottingham Forest defense, good first 6, I think, or good first, it's 5 or 6, can't remember. I think it's 6.
Yeah, it's 6.
And then after that, you'll probably want to get rid, I would think.
Maybe.
Although, to be fair, to be fair, Murillo is going to trundle along with 4 pointers even in the tough week. So fair enough. Anderson, maybe a bench option. Wirtz I like. I can't really contest it. It's quite good to maybe reveal part of my draft now, in that I don't have Wirtz. And the reason I don't have Wirtz is because I do have Van Dijk. So I want a plan to get to a third Liverpool after game week 3 is gone. So I want to keep my options open and my powder dry. And I've got a sneaky feeling that if for whatever reason Isak doesn't sign, Ekitike is actually the guy. I actually really like him through the middle. So you're okay because you're not blocking off that option if you were to go there, but then it'll be triple Liverpool attack when they actually have some really good defensive options. So that's my hesitation on Wirtz at the moment, is that it would lock me, and I actually still think other players around that price do just as well. Okay, and then Palmer, Salah, Watkins, absolutely fine. I think they're completely solid. I think expected minutes is maybe another critique I'd have. So Dewsbury Hall, new signing. We're not completely convinced on the position he'll take up yet. If he plays in a more advanced role, he probably gets reduced expected minutes because they've got so many options there now. Full crew, like you said, is probably only good for 70 minutes, not on penalties. João Pedro, probably good for 70-ish minutes. I would take the extra 20 minutes on a player on penalties like Mateta, personally. I'm not so hot on Chris Wood. I've kind of gone off of that, to be honest. Yeah. Outside of that, what I will say, so I've done a little bit of the critique, and we can answer those questions, but I would say that first glance, I was staring at it. I was like, how's he affording this? Like, it doesn't look like this is affordable. And I think that's a really positive and good sign for a draft. If you look at it and your first instinct is, he's broken this somehow. Like, how have you managed this? And then you start working out, and like, okay, he shaved 0.5 here and 1 here, and
yeah, it's how it works, isn't it?
it is. But I think the fact that on first glance, I'm like, bloody hell, he's got both Andersons on the bench, and he still managed to have Palmer, Salah, Wirtz, and Watkins in an 11 with 2 5.5s in defence. There's a lot, and a 7.5 up front as well. It feels like it shouldn't be possible, and yet here you are with it. So I think there's 1 or 2 like expected minutes risks in there, and maybe booked transfers, but it's a really like impressive side. I don't really have that much to say negatively about it, because I'm kind of scratching my head as to how you've actually managed to afford it.
Yeah, no, thank you. So points in turn, Porro. Yeah, I see your point. I think that there's definitely, and basically every analytics site that I've looked at, basically just says sell him after game week 2 or game week 3.
Yeah.
I'm not too bothered that I benched him game week 2. I think the idea would be that I think he's actually going to be, and James also on Planet FPL said this too, which I was quite pleased with. I think he's going to be actually quite surprisingly good at DEFCONs as well. And I think that he's going to, I think he did quite well against Bayern Munich, didn't he? He got 10.
Think of the opposition though. Their backs against the wall. Like, they're not going to get that against like most of the Premier League, surely.
I mean, let's see how they set up, especially if it's Thomas Frank versus the Ange way. Yeah, I totally accept your point there. It's Burnley, but equally, if you're bench boosting in game week 1, I feel like I'd be remiss to not have some sort of Spurs asset, and I've kept it to 1, purposefully kept it to 1, because for the reasons that you cited and the players that you cited as well as being a replacement, they're reachable, just about. I don't think the train is going to really take off unless Munoz goes off and gets a brace against Chelsea, which I don't think is likely, but we will see.
Well, it's more likely Porro gets a brace than Munoz does, to be fair. So, I think if you're happy to use the transfer or just leave Porro in for a while, I think that's the right call. But it is probably a book transfer at some point.
Potentially, but I mean, I think you can probably kind of. I'm not saying you are, but I think that like it's very easy to make that argument for quite a few players out there, if that makes sense. Like, I do think that Porro's projection is pretty strong for the short term, at least up until game week 4 or 5, which is the outer limit of my planning. I just don't look beyond that at this moment in time. When it's chip season, obviously we do go into a bit more theory crafting, but in this point, I just don't think it's worth it. I think he's fine for the first. I'll play him for 3 of the first 4. Tosin, yeah, completely agree that he comes with risk attached to him. I need a 4.5 who fits in, who basically can play the first 3. And again, that's all I care about, because at this point, I'm just trying to be efficient with my planning, which is to not expend lots of mental energy looking at, what am I going to be doing in game week 11? I just don't think that that's a really good use of your time and your mental capacity, because frankly you don't know, and you're probably going to be at that time you'll know more than you know now. So as it is, I think he's probably a decent minutes bet for the first few weeks, and if I don't need him, or if he does turn out to be a bit of a dud, I think Anderson's a decent 90-minute man who's favoured in the DEFCON. So if I need to play him, then I'll play him. Whatever. Estev, I've got Estev. Hopefully your bold claims are right, but he disappears off the third bench after a while. Wirtz, totally get your point on that. I would like him to be Bruno, frankly, but at the time of recording, I can't do that because I can't take 0.5 from anywhere else really here. Like, I can't really take Tosin down to a Rodon or something. I could take Murillo down to Neco. That has crossed my mind. But
That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
I do like the idea that Murillo kind of in games like Arsenal game week 4, I can just leave him there. And he basically, we were saying last week or last time we spoke, Van Dijk could be a player that you could leave there all season. Well, maybe Murillo could be as well. I think that 5.5 could be very, very good value this season, really. And the man's an absolute unit as well. Have you seen him?
He's a beast. Yeah.
So I mean, that's always quite nice to have. So I don't know. I think we will see on Wirtz. I think that some of that is hopium, some of that is the gamification side of it as well. Just because the ownership is quite decent for Wirtz, and given the price, I think that that's fine. And plus, you can get to other players, Dewsbury Hall, whatever, quite cheap. I think he will. I know I kind of have a don't have much truck for. But they spent all that money as a bit of as that sort of rejoinder. But I do think he does seem to have slotted in as number 10 there. The first 4, I think it is. Again, that's all I care about. Are pretty decent. I think 4 is Aston Villa at home, but I mean their defense is so leaky that I'm not really too bothered about that. The first 4 is okay. I'll pay him for that first 4. If he gets 2 assists over those 4 games, then that's great value at 5. One of those players that if the game was reopened now, I think he'd be 5.5 easy. Maybe a Stev as well be 4.5 actually. And Fulkrug, look, he's playing 1 game for me, and then he goes down to the bench, and then he is basically a booked-in transfer. I think it's just one of those things that I've just accepted. Could I swap him for Strand Larsen if we find that there's a 0.5 to be saved on the Valdemarsen over Verbruggen? Yes, absolutely. So there'd be 2 candidates for that to happen if I could find a 0.5. But yeah, I quite like this kind of where I've landed with all of this, really. And I completely understand kind of your buts, and they are things that I have considered, unsurprisingly. But I think the upside is mostly there. Maybe it's a case of kind of getting over myself a little bit, and maybe with Tosin, I just get rid of him for Conser and just be like, oh yeah, just accept that I've got a bit of a bias against that guy. Did score me a goal actually last year, so I don't know why it's such a negative. I think it's just from listening to Lee Jackson on the correspondent week as well, and thinking about the Villa defence and how they've let me down so much over the last few years. But the opening fixtures are so good that maybe he is kind of just worth throwing in. I don't know, but yeah, no, thanks for that. If anything, it might have just made me double down a little bit. not in a bad way, but
how dare you? It's my draft. All I would say is before we move on, I just looking at it, if you do have hesitations on Tosin, the only thing I might suggest is maybe if you want Chelsea coverage in the back line, Sanchez instead of Sells, and then Tosin becomes like a Juve or something away at Sunderland for the bench boost. And then you can kind of just forget about that position. You've got Anderson who can play most weeks. Porro can be a transfer if you want to. And then Juve, there's probably a couple of playable fixtures in there.
I've looked at it. I quite like gambling on the Forest backline for the first 6, honestly. So I think there's going to be 3 or 4 clean sheets in there. Maybe if there's even 2 there, Sam, I think that's going to, because I think realistically, I'm probably not going to be spending a transfer on a Forest defence. Probably not, on what I know. But if there's 2, 3 clean sheets in that first 6, I think that's really going to do a lot of good work for me in terms of the live rank every week. So I'm going to start with it and see what happens after that. Is kind of how I'm thinking about it.
Okay,
cool. All right, let's move on to Sam's team.
Yeah, your turn to critique me. So running through it, I think you've seen this one before, because I haven't actually changed my side in like 4 days, because every time I try to, I'm like, no, I want that player. Anyway, so Sanchez and Dubravka, the 2 goalkeepers. It is with the thought in mind that I could bench boost in game week 2, but I have to admit, I'm not completely sold on it. If the stars don't align and Dubravka isn't fit, then I'll leave it. And I'm really not fussed whatsoever. I will use it at a later point. In the back line, I've got Van Dijk at the moment. I'm not 100% locked on it being Van Dijk, but I do want a 6 million defender there as the price point covered. I think Van Dijk just about edges it for me still, but I am toying with an Arsenal defender and maybe Cucurella if I did a little bit of switch around with Sanchez for Sells and then Williams. There's a few knock-on effects that I won't go into now anyway. Moving through the back line, Munoz and Williams would be my 5.5 and 5. Again, could switch that around to a more secure DEFCON kind of boring defense of Murillo or Milenkovic alongside Lacroix. But again, I want a Palace attacker by game week. I think it's game week 3 or game week 4 when they stumble into good fixtures. And Munoz is a Palace attacker at times. So I think that would just excite me a little bit more. And they're not that far behind on the expected points. Anderson and Esteve, both defense on the bench most weeks. Anderson can come in whenever, like you've already said, great on the DEFCON. And have a good feeling about Estev being phenomenal on the DEFCON. So he'll never play. But if I need to use him in any given week, then it might be a 3 or a 4 point floor. So that seems decent. Into my midfield, Salah, Palmer haven't gone anywhere since the very first draft. Ndiaye still hasn't gone anywhere for me. There's been speculation as to the minutes. There's been speculation as to how good Everton are going forward. What Grealish is going to do to him, all of this. I still think he's Everton's best attacker. I can't see a world in which he gets significant reduction in minutes. He's on penalties. And actually, I think the players around him probably benefit him in terms of the underlying data. I think he'll probably take another step up. I would say 55-45 between him and Ismaila Sarr, because I really like Sarr. I love the underlying data. It's very tempting. I couldn't really say that I'm looking at any other 6.5s right now, but I'll always keep my options open. But at the moment, I'm leaning towards the penalty taker. And I don't really want to double up on Palace for the first couple of weeks. I'm happy to go there after 3 or 4 game weeks when their fixtures become a bit better. But I think having one in Munoz, who I probably will be starting most weeks, is enough. After that, I've also got Anderson, who hasn't really gone anywhere for a while. I know he's like the most boring player ever, but I think people are overlooking that he does have some goal threat. He's still 0.2 XGI per 90, which is still a goal involvement in one in every 5 game weeks, on top of churning out DEFCONs for fun after game week 16 last season. I think he had about a 75% hit ratio after he started getting 90 minutes a week, which he should be getting now because he's properly integrated. That is ridiculous. So if I can get 4 pointers from him as a floor, the odd 5 pointer when a clean sheet gets counted in, and then the odd attacking return, it is the most boring pick in the world. And without talking through the 5.5s too much, I'm certain there will be better 5.5s out there. But what I'm not certain on, and what I don't think anyone can be certain on at the moment, is which one is going to be the best. What Anderson will be, and I can almost guarantee it, is in the top 3. So if Anderson is in the top 3, then I'll just go with the steady Eddie, know that I'm going to get a net decent amount of points for the first few game weeks. Their fixtures turn sour around game week 7. And by that point, I'll have a bit more information to move across to the 5 to 5.5 million asset that is setting the world alight and looks like the obvious pickup at that point. And I wouldn't have lost out on too many points, given that Anderson's base is actually pretty high. So that's the reason on Anderson, and I will be starting in most game weeks. Then I come on to the main tweak since last time, which is I found a way to fit in both Bruno and Watkins, 2 9 millions alongside Palmer and Salah. I think Bruno is a standout captain in game week 3, so I want that covered. And I just think he's a great pick. I think he's going to, I obviously in my bold claim earlier, I think he's going to break his points total or certainly get close. I think he's going to comfortably get 200 points. And yeah, DEFCON monster, especially if he's playing in the A. I think he'll be a creative force once again. And importantly, if after 3 game weeks and after that Burnley fixture is out the way, it doesn't look like he's the guy, then great news, because Wirtz is 8.5. At worst, he'll be 8.6, 8.7. And he's just played Newcastle and Arsenal back-to-back, so he won't be being bought too heavily. So I can just hop across to Wirtz very, very easily in one move if I absolutely need to. Or, because I've got Watkins up front, I can do the same to Ekitike if I fancy that instead. Yep. I can equally also get to Gyökeres. So that's why I've done those 2 price points, because I don't see a world in which I sell Salah or Palmer, or certainly not in the first 3 or 4 game weeks. So Bruno and Watkins are my safe, like steady Eddie. Like I'm very happy with them because I know they'll get good minutes. Bruno's on penalties. Watkins might be. They both got good underlying data, and they're at a price point that I can get to pretty much any other forward, any other midfielder in one move if I need to after a few game weeks. And they've got good fixtures at certain points in the first few game weeks as well. Finishing off with Strand Larsen, 6.5. It is a little bit of a regret that I don't have a 7.5 million forward. I would like one, but a compromise needed to be made somewhere. And like I said, I can downgrade Watkins to whichever 7.5 ends up being the guy after a few game weeks if I need to. And a bit like what I said with Anderson in midfield, I'm not completely certain which 7.5 is going to be the guy. It could be Mateta, could be Pedro, could be Wood, could be Solanke, who's fit. All of these players could be the one. So I'm just not going to play that game. I'm just going to leave it, have Watkins, who I know will do really well. And honestly, at 6.5 million, I don't think you're going to get better than Strand Larson. Pretty likely to be on penalties. I don't think we can guarantee it, but he's leading the line and is going to be the focal point and talisman for Wolves. I think that's fine, if a little bit unexciting.
Yep.
And he's got good fixtures for quite a long time. So final note, I'm looking at free hitting in game week 6, wildcarding as late as game week 13 if I can. So a lot of these picks are expected minutes monsters that I can hold on to with decent fixtures for a long, long time. So I'm reducing transfers wherever I possibly can, in the knowledge that something here will go wrong. One of these players will get injured, or one of them will end up being a rotation risk, whatever, that I'm just not expecting. But I'm trying to reduce the risks as much as possible.
Yeah, no. Thank you. That definitely makes a lot of sense to me. So we've got 6 in common, and I'm very glad I'm bench boosting just for the pod, because I think as I was listening to you talking, I was looking at your team as well very closely. I was just so glad I'm bench boosting, just because I think that if I'd have gone down the same line of thought as you, there would be a lot of these players cropped up in my team. I think we'd probably be probably not 15 out of 15, but probably looking at kind of 12 out of 15 the same.
Yeah.
But because our courses are slightly different, which is the beauty of this season. I hope that's going to kind of show through in the end as well. Because our courses are so different, I think that's I think that's really good, basically, and that we're so different effectively. But yeah, no, I think that's a really, really good team. I think leave the bench boosting too, mate. Honestly, I just can't see that ever coming in. But Mark Gu, Dubravka, they're perfectly good pickups for cheap reasons, and like Steve and Anderson for the same reasons I've got them, absolutely fine. At the back, I think I've had the same sort of A versus B sort of conundrum as you regarding, Virgil versus Cuckoo, and then Sanchez. Does he then go to Sells, and then Williams? What happens with him? Do I stay with the double Forest defense, which I like, or do I do something else with that? The rest of the 5 points are defenders outside of Williams, and maybe Romero aren't the best, so it becomes one of those. Yeah, maybe Lacroix as well.
Very good.
But you've got Munoz as well, so do you want double pallet?
It would have to be a swap where it's like Murillo and Lacroix, or Milenkovic and Lacroix instead. So it's the same price, and that will come down to the wire. It depends how fun or boring I want to be.
I've had similar debates with myself, honestly, and it completely makes sense, kind of the way you've done it. I don't think there's actually any worry about Williams, which is something that might make me kind of move Murillo back to Williams. But now I've kind of got Murillo, I quite like him, just because I can just, in games like, they've got Arsenal in game week 4, haven't they? And for that, you're probably going to be, there's an okay chance you'll be looking at maybe benching him, because you've got Anderson who plays Leeds at home. For me, I think that I'd play Murillo in that and not really worry about it.
Yeah.
But for if I had Williams, I think that it wouldn't quite be that case. Like, I'd swap them definitely that week. So it's one of those to kind of keep in mind if you're planning a bit longer. I really like Munoz, but kind of as you were talking through your justification for him, all that crossed my mind was, have you considered Sarah's live and die? And then you mentioned that those two were kind of the only two you like. I think Sar, and as shown by our spreadsheet as well, we presented a couple of weeks ago, I think Sar's the standout 6.5 by an awful long way. I just don't like Ndai that much. I had Ndai quite a lot last year, actually, but I think his underlying data is not fantastic. If you look at his FB ref profile, it's very much it's almost like Jordan Ayew, effectively. It's very defensive. Got penalties, absolutely. Got a good first 4. But I don't know. I just, he's got he's got Tielemans energy to me a little bit and die, where I'd be kind of like, if he doesn't get a penalty, this is assuming Tielemans on penalties, we don't really know, but if he doesn't get a penalty, I kind of feel like my projection every week is 2. And that's not really what I like. And that's why I've gone, again, I don't want to get into pick my team territory, but that's why I was just like, I'm more than happy to pay 5 million for KDH as my Everton pick. over and die. And if I kind of was looking at 6.5, I think Sarr would be the one that I'd definitely go for. And then maybe you decide whether you want Munoz and Sarr, and then maybe there's some more sort of thinking to do. But I can see why you
that could then become Tarkowski instead of Munoz, perhaps.
Yeah.
And then so it'd still be like an Everton Crystal Palace combo, but it'd be the reverse combo of like Tarkowski, Defcon monster with Sarr, who does have much better underlying attacking data. Yeah, that is something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, Sarr, I think, is one of those players who, like, we kind of forget that he's kind of 27 now, and he's one of those that I think just never really found a home, did he? And I think that it kind of feels like him. He's really kind of finding his feet at Palace. Only thing with Palace, as I mentioned in the chat as well, is that Europe fixture between 2 and 3. I don't think that should put you off a player like Sarr. But that compounded by Gahey and Eze potentially leaving and them kind of scrambling to get very late replacements, that's the only thing that makes me think I'm not sure yet. Like I think kind of, game you mentioned earlier on as well in terms of the Porro pick. Yeah, game week 4 with the Sunderland home game, everything will be kind of settled by then. You'll be post IB. You have a better idea with them what's going on. I think maybe that's how I'm perceiving the entry point. But Munoz is going to Munoz.
Exactly. I think Munoz I'm a bit more secure on than a Sarr, and that's why I'm this way round at the moment. But admittedly, obviously, that will have a knock-on effect on all Crystal Palace assets if both of them do go all of a sudden. I'm not too worried about them becoming far worse defensively if Gahey leaves. It will affect them to some extent, but they will have known for quite a while now that Gahey's got a year left and that they need to future plan at least a little bit. So I think Lacroix's the best defender there. I think he's the focal point and he's the one who's basically marshalling the back line. So I don't think that Gahey going is going to like massively affect them. It will maybe hurt them a little, but I think he'll still pick up a relatively normal amount of clean sheets. And if Eze's gone, then maybe there's more emphasis on Munoz being used as an outlet ball to get forward and actually progress the ball up the pitch a little bit. So I'm not too fussed about that really. But yeah, he's far from locked in my team. That like Munoz, Ndiaye, and Williams are probably the 3 that I'm like messing around with the most at the moment. But each time I start messing, I'm like, but I do like that combination. I kind of, I need to maybe reset everything and just have a look with fresh eyes to see if there's a better way of playing that.
I think it's a good thing, I think, broadly to be here, because I think that if you look at kind of people starting out on FPL now, which is completely understandable. I understand why this would not be of interest to you. I assume you're not listening or watching this if that is the case for you. But if you are in that situation, I think there's definitely a few things that we've kind of got in terms of 6.5 as being mostly a bit of a dead zone. The 5.5 midfielders mostly being a bit of a bit of a caution sign over most of them. Other than probably Anderson, which is not particularly exciting. A bit of a lightning rod for hey, this person uses review. But
on that note, though, should we at least talk about the other 5.5 that everyone?
Oh, baby reindeers.
Yeah. What we thinking?
The thing is, I can't get over the fact that he's not a defensive player. And if anyone's ever owned him with Football Manager, you'll know that's the truth. And
he's
also,
a proper 8.
Yeah, if you look at his, it's free. Go on FBref, look at his underlying data. Like, he's very attacking or at least kind of involved in build-up play. He's not there for tackles. He's not there for blocks. He's not there for clearances. He's kind of not really there for interceptions either. And it wouldn't take much, especially if Rodri not being he's available, but he's not kind of fit enough to start the first 3. Would you be surprised to see Nicolas Gonzalez and then Gundogan and Bernardo as the 3 for Man City? I mean, we've all been Pep before in the past, and I think that it's one of those things that, because I'm on bench boost, I'm going to take the 90 minutes with Anderson, and I think that if you got 2 5.5s, you're not bench boosting, perfect, absolutely fine. Do take the 2 of them and just see kind of how you go. But I just can't quite buy into it yet. Is where I'm at. in terms of baby reindeers. I know that he scored 2 goals, but I think that needs to be put into proper context, right?
Yeah, I do get the feeling also that Man City, there's a lot yet to be revealed about the way they're going to play this year. So whilst Reinders, I think it's Reinders are EI, but I'm
It's
not.
right. It's Reinders, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I think whilst he played almost in like a 10 role against Palermo, and again, I reiterate Palermo, it was a second half substitution off the bench where they were clearly experimenting and they didn't have all of their best 10s ready to play. So Foden isn't really a factor at the moment, but will be undoubtedly. So I do just wonder whether we're actually going to see that version of him all that often. He will get into advanced positions. I'm sure he will get goals, but if he gets the odd goal at 5.5, but only 70 minutes a match, then the odd benching, and it all just gets a little bit messy and a little bit complicated. All I'd say is I want to see it. Like, I want to see him get the minutes. I want that proof that, okay, he is playing in a more advanced role. He is being a box crasher. He is playing the Gundogan role from seasons past.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that the minutes are there before going there. And that I kind of touched on it earlier. That's why I've got Anderson at the moment, because I'm fully expecting one of Reinders, Arias, Wilson. Like, there's loads of options at 5. Adingra as well. One of them is going to be better than Anderson, but I don't know which one. And I don't think all of them are. I think 1 or 2 of them at best are going to be better. But what Anderson gives you, and to a certain extent, like a Caicedo as well, is a nice floor, a high floor, where you know that if you get it, if one of them pops off, you're at least not going to be too far behind them. You're going to be a bit behind them, but probably not that far. And you can then jump across to them. Whereas maybe 60 to 80% of the people who took the risk on one of them, whether that's Arias, Reinders, Wilson, whatever, one of those players is probably going to do well. That small collective of people who pick the right player flying, but then there's a massive collective of people who bet on the wrong horse and are then 20 points behind the crowd. Whereas at least with Anderson, at worst, you're going to be like 5 or 10 and you're going to be in the fight. You might even be ahead. You might get lucky and none of them turn out to be the pick. I'm pretty confident at least one of them will be, but I don't know which. And therefore, I'm just going to go with the safe one on Anderson.
Yeah. And what turned me as well against Wilson is that actually kind of they've got 2 good-looking home games, for example, between 4 and 5, Leeds at home and Brentford at home. So, you know, if Douglas Luiz signs for Forest and then it suddenly seems that Anderson's being taken off and so they're transitioning over to Douglas Luiz for whatever reason, I don't think that will probably be the case, but for whatever reason, then hey, you know what, there's a decent replacement there who's not going to have the ownership probably that's going to be burning the ceiling. But yeah, I think we did say at one point we're going to do a floor versus ceiling debate, but I think that's quite a cliche one, so I'm glad we haven't. But yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. I mean, I think Anderson hitting the DEFCONs so consistently is just, you know, it's just such an unavoidable argument. I mean, I think he's 6.3% owned at the moment. I mean,
he's going to stay differential.
I think so. And I think that's fine, you know, because the value of these players is what we've spoken about a lot this preseason, because that's value. If a 5.5 is scoring 4 points for you every week, yeah, okay. If you've got a Wilson who gets you 2, 12, 2, then that's great. You know, that's fantastic. But Anderson getting 4 over the long term and not a transfer out I need to worry about, or we need to worry about, probably a little bit better. Maybe. That's how I look at it at that price. One player in the 6 that is favoured a lot by the Algos, and you will see him in many Algo teams going around, is Mr. Jorginho Rutter. He is continental, so we can't call him Rutter. He's Rutter. A friend of the pod, Dan, has just mentioned that, you know, is Rutter the best possible asset in 6.5 to 5.5 range?
He's up there.
Yeah, I think honestly, if I wasn't kind of so set on my on where I am at the moment, because like 0.5 won't get me from KDH to Rutter, I think that I would be definitely looking at him as a pick. With him, I think he's, because of the price being so good, he's one of those that could be one of those players, as you mentioned earlier, Sam, in the 5.5 bracket. If we look up a little tiny bit, one of those players who does kind of ascend a little bit and elevates himself into a, hey, okay, this guy's really, really bloody good. But Brighton's early fixtures such a mixed bag. His like early kind of fixtures aren't
Hang on,
particularly
I've got
screaming.
the fixtures there. There you go.
Yeah, they're not screaming to me. So, you know, do we feel that? I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. I'd start with him at the moment.
Yeah, he seems like a nice game week 7 transfer if he's getting the minutes and he's playing up front. I that's the way I see it as well. I don't think you need to rush to him straight away. We don't think he's got penalties either. There are doubts over expected minutes. I think he's probably one of the more solid options at 6, but I'd probably just wait after game week 6 is out of the way and then maybe use those first 6 game weeks to like prove all of those points and check all those boxes first. But I wouldn't put anyone off of him. He's got upside and he looks like a really, really good pick at 6. Just, I think maybe not to begin with for me personally.
Yeah, I mean that guy Welbs is 34, 35. So
yeah,
I mean, I think he's actually the only. They've got 2 Greek lads, haven't they? I was going to say he's the only recognised striker at Brighton.
But Ruter's been playing in the first 11 in the friendlies, by the way, which is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, there's him. There's definitely a lot of kind of midfielders in the mix. So someone's just mentioned Daniel just mentioned Minte in the chat, your man from last year, Sam, and it would seem
he'd do a good season. Yeah,
it would seem to me that it's Matoma, Minte, and Jorginho who probably could have Belabor, for example, hasn't appeared in preseason at all, and there's the Man United links. I just it's one of those where they're such a Schrodinger's cat of a team, Brighton, that I just kind of feel like I'm just not confident enough to pick any of their players at the moment, apart from Verbruggen. That's kind of where I've landed with them a little bit. But I, as you said, I completely understand why someone would want to go there. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I also think De Kalper after a few game weeks is going to be sensational as well. I just want to get those fixtures out the way. Like it's all very tempting to look at all players with like a blank canvas at the start of the year and like, oh, but this guy's going to be essential. It's such good value for money. That might be true, but it also might not be the right time to have them yet. And we've got 38 game weeks to get to these guys. So yeah, I think with Brighton, it is just a wait and see for me and get to game week 7 and arguably even game week 10 is a better hopping on point. But yeah, at least game week 7 and then maybe jump across then.
Just thinking about your 6 million conundrum with defender. I mean, one player who has appeared in quite a few of my teams, but is now probably I'm not going to start with is Aït-Nouri, just because the first 4 for City, as I was speaking, I had a bit of a Marmouche flirtation a little while ago. Goose mentioned in the chat as well. So you got Wolves, Spurs, Brighton, and United the first 4, like all bottom 10 teams for XGC last year. Ones who may sort of potentially be quite good prey for a player like Aït-Nouri at the start. A very sort of anti-Pep signing, isn't he, though, Sam? Like he's very sort of out of the box, unregimented, the sort of player that potentially Jack Grealish was, quite an expressive player who doesn't particularly abide by managerial instructions. I think that realistically with City and Matthias Nunes, as we mentioned in the chat as well, I saw a thread on Reddit about he got like 100 points over the last kind of the second half of the season if he had been reclassified as a defender. So there was a Reddit thread about him being him and a 4.5 million defender as backup, and could he be worth including? And both he and Aït-Nouri have also got that old club thing versus Wolves game week 1. I just don't have that. I don't have that trust in them at the moment at all. I think that Aït-Nouri definitely plays game week 1. That's for sure. And it's just that by game week 3, game week 4, I just would not be surprised at all if Pep has just gone right. Okay, Akanji, Ake, Diaz. And and maybe Nunez stays around, or maybe just kind of just plays 4 centre backs. I mean, you just don't know with that. And anyone who is buying a Man City player and saying that there's a good chance they're nailed, may I introduce you to Pep Guardiola?
Yeah, I think with City and with Aït-Nouri to begin with, he's a fantastic player, and he's been bought for a very, very specific role at Man City. One that Pep started carving out last year. Gvardiol was the one playing in that role, but I think everyone knew that he wasn't the long-term solution. Ait-Nouri clearly is. He is the right player for that exact role. The left back that kind of inverts, gets into the box, plays a bit box crasher like role, a bit like Cucurella at Chelsea to an extent, and really adds that extra attacker into the final third. However, like you mentioned, with Pep, he does like to tinker with the way the system is shaped around certain players. And if for whatever reason they don't get off to a good start, or if he sees something in this very specific system that doesn't work, then it wouldn't be crazy to suggest he just doesn't use a system with a box crasher left back. And Ait-Nouri is kind of limited to just that one role. He's not like Gvardiol, where if they change the system, Gvardiol can just play centre back or just play a less attacking left back. Ait-Nouri is there for one purpose and one purpose only. So I'd be a little bit worried that at any given moment, Pep could just be like, "This isn't working the way I need it to. I'm gonna change the tactics one way or another. Maybe it's working, and he just wants to freshen things up because it's Pep. He can see things that we don't, and then all of a sudden, Ait-Nouri just isn't the fancied option." The other thing I'd mention, and again, this is not saying Ait-Nouri is a bad pick by any means. I really like him, and he was in my very first draft because I think the upside is huge. But you mentioned the attacking opportunities for the first few game weeks. I think they're there. How many clean sheets do you think they get in the first 5, though? Because Spurs, Brighton, Man United, Arsenal, not fancying it that much. Wolves, I think, sure, maybe. Burnley after game week 5, but I'm probably free hitting in game week 6, to be honest. So not so bothered. Then it's a run of Brentford, Everton, both okay. Villa, Bournemouth, Liverpool, Newcastle. I don't think that's a great first 12 game weeks for clean sheets, to be honest, especially if you take out game week 6, which I know is very like situational for me, but I'm not seeing Man City as a team that I'm like, oh, I'm going to miss out on like 5-6 clean sheets there, unless they really shore up at the back. And I just don't think they're going to do that, especially if Rodri's got fitness issues. So yeah, I like Ait-Nouri, I like Gvardiol, but I'm not sold on having them in over Liverpool defenders or Arsenal defenders to begin with, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's one of those that, like, realistically, it's quite convenient that I'm not going to be trying to include one of them because it makes everything else work, which sounds absolutely terrible. It sounds such like a get out of jail for free card. But I think that there's a lot of not kind of flimsy buts, but buts that have sort of substantial enough feeling behind them that I can kind of just about empathize with them. And I completely agree with what you're saying about the fact that if I'm looking for a City player, I think it's probably going to be Marmoush or Haaland. And am I going to go with Marmoush over Verts? I think those opening 4 games are very good for attacking. It's just that, to bring it back to my team, I'm not going to have a Liverpool defender. So am I going to feel a bit naked just going Salah alone? Probably. And then game week 4, there's a good time to reassess with the Burnley game. And those two after game week 1 aren't great. I just kind of feel like they're a convenient ignore, which sounds awful. But sometimes you've got to just kind of be a bit pragmatic about these things, honestly. And I think you made some good points about how maybe there's definitely scope to just kind of just say, okay, does Ruben Diaz, for example, the year when he and John Stones came together, absolute kind of monstrous double team, are those sorts of things happening? I think kind of we can reassess later on, potentially, City, especially because, again, Gamfield ownership is definitely that worrying. As you said, that wildcard 6 does look quite good, just because it's one of those. I've looked at it a little bit, Sam, as a Man City and I think it's like Spurs have got Wolves, Forest got Sunderland, is it?
Hang on, I'll go over to the fixtures just to get it correct.
Bournemouth have got Leeds, I think, as well that week, so that could be a really nice week to do it. And Goose in the chat as well has just mentioned just to talk about forwards and the conundrums there. He said that 20-goal Chris Wood has really gone out of fashion with his 200 points. I mean, I think we were both sort of initially looking at him, and he's sort of for me, I've gone kind of full circle where I kind of didn't have a 7.5 attacker, and then I kind of have put one in just to see what happens in terms of all of those. And I think you've gone even more extreme than me, where I've got one in just to see how it goes, whereas and thinking, well, if I don't really like any of them, then I can get Strand Larson, whose fixtures do probably get a bit better a bit later on. I'm going to say for Wolves, I think so. Game week kind of 5 onwards.
Nah, they're great from game week 2. I'm not having that.
Yeah, Bournemouth, Everton, fine. Newcastle, yeah, okay. Maybe I could go a little bit earlier if needed, but it's not going to kill me that much. I do really like Strand Larson. Gave the case from last week. I think it's a really good pickup. But yeah, Wood, it feels like it's been a bit of a casualty of what's going on. Maybe it's because of the focus at the back. I know Forest have failed to muster a single goal, or maybe one in pre-season.
One goal in 7 games so far in pre-season.
But they've kept a lot of clean sheets, and we know that they kind of set up to defend effectively, or set up to keep the clean sheet. It kind of just feels like that. You could read the narrative that, Chris Woods, he's as you said earlier on, all they care about is competitive games, a la Tony Pulis' West Brom and Stoke. All they care about is the real games, and he's going to show up and then do a goal every game, which is going to get him through. I don't know. It's just at 7.5, I kind of want a bit more from one of my strikers. But hey, here I am, João Pedro, expecting for a goal in the 70 minutes he's going to get on the pitch. So who am I to talk?
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say Mateta as the option. And if he stays at Palace and gets 90 minutes on penalties, I think that might be arguably the solution here, kind of ticking all of the boxes that you would want both João Pedro and Chris Wood for across both assets. He's the best of both worlds. Same with Dom Solanke as well, by the way. I think Dom Solanke, if he's fit, come game week 1, might be the answer, to be very honest. I think that's where we both started. And yeah, the problem with Mateta is that apparently now Newcastle are sniffing around him as well. So if you'll believe it, that it might be Mateta, Eze and Guehi all leaving Palace if rumours are to be taken seriously. So we'll see. But there's definitely a lot of moving pieces at Palace at the moment. So it might be enough to put me off of committing too heavily to them. Yeah, João Pedro, do we need to talk much more about? I think everyone's talked about João Pedro plenty, right? We know what minutes we're going to get from him. We know what attacking threat he's got.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where you look at the game as it is and you decide, well, you want to take it on. I probably don't at the start of the season think him as exit points, but some probably will, and I completely sympathise with both sides of the die here on that one. Simple as that.
Yeah. I'm fully prepared to, I guess, not be wrong on it, because I still think he'll be great. But I do feel like there are other options around that price that I can just get more of a guarantee from. I still think there are some questions there. They've got a lot of options, and Delap will get 20-30 minutes a game, and he's looked good in pre-season as well. I think with that in mind, I'm happy to maybe wait and go there after game week 7's out of the way. And then they've got that nice little run: Forest, Sunderland, Spurs, Wolves, Burnley. I think by that point we'll know whether João Pedro is nailed. Not nailed, nailed's the wrong word. I suppose like a locked 80 to 90 minute man. If that's the case and he looks irresistible, then worst case scenario, I get him then. But until then, Watkins and Strand Larson both have good enough fixtures that I think it carries me through. And where I'm lacking that third forward, I'm gaining another midfielder with a bit more firepower. So
yeah,
I think it's okay. But João Pedro is probably the player I'm most worried about not owning right now. Maybe alongside Wirtz, but to a lesser extent. I think João Pedro is the one I'm scared of.
Yeah, I feel like I've ended up sort of uncomfortably comfortable with having João Pedro and Wirtz for that exact reason, which sounds really kind of like I'm kind of bowing to peer pressure in some ways and herd mentality, thinking about Pop Ross, but it just sort of feels like if those trains do start to go, then I've saved myself a transfer. If they don't, then they are kind of they've got lots of good substitute goods at that price that I can kind of feel okay with the fact that I can get rid of them. There's good alternatives there. But yeah, I mean, we shall see. I think I'm kind of I think if you had to put a percentage on it, Sam, in terms of how locked in you are at this point, I think there's been pods where I've come here at this point and kind of said, yeah, I'm completely lost. There's other pods where I've come in and just gone, you know what, I could change every player. I think that I'm going to put it about kind of a 90%. I'm going to put that as being where I am at the moment.
I'm probably about 80 to 90 as well. I don't think I can remember a preseason where this late on, or like, sorry, not this late on, with like a week to go, where it's been like 4 or 5 days in a row where I have not touched my draft. And every time I've tried to, and I've like stress tested it a bit, and I'm like, oh, what if I do this, that, or the other? I end up back where I was. Usually at this point, I'm still like, oh, but what about this guy? And then I find a way to squeeze them in, and then everything changes around. That hasn't happened for like 3 or 4 days now for me. So that's rare. So I'm a little bit thinking maybe I'm there, maybe I'm done, but I'm not ready to just commit to that and say I'm locked yet, because situations can change. We need the press conferences. I might have a light bulb moment at some point, either tonight or tomorrow morning. I'm like, oh, that's the solution. I get it now. So I'll leave my avenues open, but I'm relatively confident that this is the draft I'll end up near.
Cool. All right. Well, there we go. Year 9, the preseason complete, I think. Enjoy.
Lovely. Yeah, very nice. That was really good fun. Hopefully you all enjoyed it as well. And yeah, fingers crossed for the start of the season. We won't talk to you again before we lock in for Gameweek 1, I don't think. I'll obviously be doing stuff on my channel, but from Who Got the Assist, we hope you've enjoyed preseason. And if you have done so, we'd really appreciate it if you could give us a follow on Blue Sky at Who Got the Assist, all written out one word, Who Got the Assist, FPL Pricey on there. On X, WGTA_FPL or FPL Pricey on there, or on YouTube. If you're not watching along, it's WGTA_FPL. And then I've got my own YouTube channel on here at FPL Pricey if you wanted to check out my daily videos. And then, yeah, like I said, if you enjoyed the pod, if you could give us a follow on those social channels, that'd be amazing. If you could give the pod a 5-star rating wherever you're listening, that would also be really appreciated. And of course, if you could hit like and subscribe on YouTube, if you're watching along on here, that would also really help us out. All of those things really do help to get the pod out there. So thank you very much. And a massive thank you from both of us for joining us for preseason.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sam, you were doing a stream on Thursday night, I hear.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I always forget about that. So yeah, I'm doing non-deadline streams the night before, because the deadline streams just get too busy. So take the pressure off, couple of drinks, and we can go through some decisions, go through the press conferences, all of that good stuff. I'll be doing that on Thursday evening this week because it's a Friday deadline. And I think the next couple after that are Thursday deadlines as well, Friday deadlines. So I'll be doing them on Thursdays for the first few weeks. So yeah, come tune into that, bring a drink, and we can have a bit of a laugh if you want.
Yeah, check out Sam, FPL Pricey. Cool. All right. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, everybody. Well, there we go. Another preseason done, another season dawning. We can't wait, nor I hope can you. We hope this is you on Gameweek 1, and we'll see you on the other side next Tuesday. Speak then.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.